I had walked by the bathroom and saw my mom laying on the floor. She had an overdose of heroin.
Drugs nearly killed Frank Perez's mother, but that didn't stop him from becoming a junkie too.
I was addicted to methamphetamine for 16 years. It started out with paint, pot, and then, being a poor kid raised in the streets, we would sniff gasoline, and then to where I got to, when I got to high school, got involved in PCP, which is angel dust, and then started doing more hallucinogenics as far as acid.
Frank grew up surrounded by drug addicts who cared very little about what he did.
I really had no supervision growing up as a kid. So when normal kids would be home and in bed by 8 o'clock, I was out still roaming the streets at 9, 10 o'clock at night with friends or hanging out with people that were older than me.
Frank began to mimic the drug use he saw at home.
I was roughly about 7 years old, and my brother-in-law and some friends were out in the backyard sniffing paint. And I went out there to see what they were doing and just started talking to them and asking them why they're doing it. And they just told me, here, you try it.
Before long, police arrested Frank's mother for selling heroin and sent her to jail.
When I would go visit my mom, I just didn't want to leave her. Because I always told my mom, no matter what, nothing was ever going to separate us. I always wanted to be there with my mom.
Frank was forced to live with his aunt and uncle.
When you're a young kid, you see the way other people are loving on their kids and stuff. And even though they were my aunt and uncle, I really didn't feel like I was part of that family.
A few years later, his mother got out of jail. She began attending church and gave her life to Christ. Then suddenly, tragedy struck. Frank's mother died of a heart attack.
That's where I really became bitter and angry. And I thought to myself, well, what kind of God would do this? Here, my mom was going to church, turned her life around, and he just took her.
Frank wanted nothing to do with God.
I really hated him for the fact that he took the one person that really meant anything to me in my life. The one person I can talk to about anything. And he took her at a time where I thought, I was finally going to get my mom back.
Grief-stricken, Frank turned to a powerful combination of drugs to numb his pain.
I would get up in the morning to go to work, and I'd be kind of tired, so I would go in my garage and smoke a little bit of methamphetamine. And as I was on my way to work, I would smoke pot just to keep me on a mellow balance. And then during the day, I'd be smoking my pot and doing my methamphetamine. And when I would come at home at night, I would just, in order for me to be able to go to sleep and get somewhat rest, I would take the Valium to sleep.
Eventually, the pain became too much to bear. Frank decided to kill himself.
At that moment, I just got to the point where if I was to die tonight, who's going to care? So I saw 2 5-gallon buckets. I put them end on end. I had some rope. I got a piece of rope and made a noose out of it, threw it over the wood rafter that we had in the garage and tied it to the vise and hung on it to see if it would hold me. And I kicked the bucket out and I began to hang there for about 30 seconds. All of a sudden I felt this jerk. And I jerked to where my feet can touch the ground, my toes enough to where I can get the rope off my neck. And it scared me. And at that time, I wasn't scared of anything. I wasn't scared of dying. I wasn't scared of anything. And that moment I got scared.
Frank realized it was time to get help. He decided to talk to a pastor of a local church. That conversation led Frank to Christ.
He asked me to close my eyes. He goes, "Are you ready for a life change?" And I said, well, yeah, I got nothing else to lose. I have nothing. So I said, yeah. He goes, okay, close your eyes and repeat this prayer after me. I felt something different. I felt this peace that I'd never felt in my life before. And I just knew at that moment something was different. That the true God, the true living God that they talked about, that people tried to share with me, existed. Because within that moment, I felt free.
Drugs no longer control Frank's life. He is completely free from a 24-year addiction.
I'm just very grateful for how God has changed me. And regardless of what I've gone through and what I've faced, I've seen the power of God work in my own life.
Now, he wants others to find the same freedom and peace he discovered.
The God that I was praying to had finally released me from my prison. I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for him.